Welcome to Coffee Break with Rachel Vigil, taking a daily look at the biggest stories in Denver sports and interacting live with you, the Coffee Break fam. So sit back, relax, grab a cup of joe, and enjoy your coffee break. Here's your host, Rachel Vigil.
I have been saying this all week. It feels like a playoff game come Sunday. So you know when Cecil Lammey's in the building that we are going to be talking all about the game. Cecil, how are you?
It's great. It is a playoff game. In fact, the Broncos have been playing playoff football since the Thursday Kansas City game that they lost. Honestly, they've been on this roll. They must stay on this roll. You've gone over the numbers on Coffee Break. They got to keep winning.
They have to keep winning. But real quick, it's December 1st, Cecil. Like, this is meaningful football month, and we're talking about the Denver Broncos in the conversation. Think about how far this team has come.
Right. And then think about how they haven't played their best football. What's remarkable about the Denver Broncos, what's remarkable is I can't speak English and I'm on the air. What's remarkable about the Denver Broncos is the fact that they haven't even come close to playing their best game. So it's not like this team peaked against Kansas City because you get up for Kansas City in its division and you end the streak and all these sorts of things and then you slide downhill. No, they've been kind of just trying to get better incrementally. They've had some other teams make mistakes. The Vikings gave up on the run too soon. The Browns gave up on the run too soon. You can still run on this team, but the Broncos are playing playoff football and they haven't even peaked. I think that should be a great sign of hope for all Broncos fans that they can even be better, which here's the secret. They can be.
Okay, so what's the key? What are they missing then?
Yeah, what they're missing is the ability to stuff the run defensively. That's a problem for this team.
Okay, specifically, let's talk offense then. Because I feel like defense, we'll get to that. But let's talk offense because that's where I find the most struggle for this team.
Well, and here's the guy that's banged up. We're watching for his Friday practice status. Of course, I'll be out there at Centura Health Training Center. It's Jerry Jeudy. The key is Jerry Jeudy. That may scare a lot of you. It scares me. It makes me nervous. But the key is, okay, here's what teams are going to do. They're going to stack the line to stuff the run because they want to run the ball. We all know that. Javonte, 3.5 a carry. It's not great. Samaje is a little bit better. I'd like to see that turn into a 50-50 split between those two. So then what happens? You stack the line to stuff the run. Football 101. Courtland Sutton is the only receiver that can do anything. Double team him, take him away. Now you're an offense that's struggling because you can't run and Sutton's out. So who needs to step up? In one-on-one coverage, Jerry Jeudy should beat everybody. He should beat anybody that's tasked with covering him. And if Jeudy does elevate his game, the answer would be Greg Dulcich, but he can't stay healthy. We can't rely on the tight end position until they upgrade that in the offseason. The point is, what's my point? The point is Jerry Jeudy is that guy. If he can step up, that's the difference maker for this Broncos team to truly get them to play their best football. And when they can pass and they can run, and then teams are like, we don't know what to do. They want to run, but they'll pass on you and they'll get it done. When that happens, when there's true weapons in the passing game beside just Courtland Sutton, that's when this Broncos team can truly peak and play their best football.
And what is it? Is it just going to be Sean Payton coming up with a game plan? Like, I feel like each week I'm like, all right, this is what I think they're going to do. And then we see like a little part of that, maybe for the first half, and then it just completely changes. I mean, I've kind of preached this. It feels like Sean Payton's playing a mind game 24/7 with like every team. And I get you kind of do that in the NFL. You got to outsmart the other coach. But like, I don't know what to expect from this offense. Is it going to be run heavy? Are they going to utilize more of Jerry Jeudy? Are we going to get Marvin Mims involved more? I'm not sure what to expect each week. And I feel like sometimes as a fan that can be a little frustrating, but also they're winning. So we can't really complain.
Yeah, now imagine being a defensive coordinator, right?
Yeah,
you know what Sean Payton has done. And what's weird is he's not doing the Sean Payton offense. As I've said a million times, like this isn't the Sean Payton offense, but it's working. So who cares? And I can't reveal what I've seen at practice. Yes, if I had a quarter for every time I said that, I'd have a soda. But anyway, like
I'd have a soda.
There are elements to what this team can do that they are practicing. I'm not going to tell you what they are, but we don't see them on Sunday. I don't know why. Maybe Sean Payton is waiting. Maybe he's waiting for the right time to unveil some of these different concepts. They're more than just plays. They're absolute concepts that we do not see, that we used to see from Sean Payton. Sean Payton likes these concepts. He's waiting to unleash them. When he trusts his quarterback, I believe he will.
And you know what? Actually, kind of looking at that, it's like when the two teams that they played, obviously the Browns and the Vikings, when you look at their offense and their quarterbacks, like we're not talking about star-studded quarterbacks. Like what they did to Josh Allen was great, but the other two obviously backup QBs. So maybe he is saving it for the big game, right? Where they should easily be able to go out there and beat the backup quarterbacks and not have to worry about it. It should be an easy victory, although no NFL game's ever totally easy. But maybe he is saving some of those things that you guys are talking about that you're seeing out there at practice for like, hey, we get into the wild card, we're going to play it there.
Well, and what happens is that when you hit the postseason, what's great is the Broncos have been playing playoff football, like I said. That's running the ball and that's playing great defense. They're doing both. They're not stopping the run, but they're running the ball and they're playing great defense. That's playoff football. In December, when the calendar changes, as it's changed today, teams start to do that. The weather changes. They start to run more. It becomes more of a defensive effort. So there's this change in the NFL season. The Broncos are already doing that. So everyone else is going to start to get used to doing that. This is something the Broncos have been doing, 5-6 weeks, whatever the number is. And when it comes to the postseason, now you got to change back. It's something when Bill Cowher was the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers, he would always run the ball and play great defense. And when he got to the postseason, he wanted to run the ball and play great defense. Didn't win anything until the trip to Super Bowl 40, which unfortunately went through Denver. And he decided to let's let Roethlisberger sling it. Let's let him go out there and wing it and see what happens. Then you see a Super Bowl victory for the Pittsburgh Steelers because Bill Cowher changed it up. He gave people a different look that they weren't expecting. Sean Payton is doing one thing. He's doing it really well. They'll continue to do it in the regular season, but come postseason football, to truly advance, you must change. And Peyton's got the ability to do that.
I don't want to get yelled at by everybody who's in love with Russell Wilson because the fan base, they love them right now. Cecil, did we get, I don't want to say the word bamboozled, but everyone's saying, oh, the eye test and the stats are comparing to what Russell Wilson looked like when he was in Seattle. But I remember a quarterback that it just felt like he was able to dominate the field at sometimes. And I don't feel that exact same way like he is in Denver, even though everything else seems to be lining up.
Right. And everyone that's the Russell Wilson defender, you weren't doing that 2 months ago. Okay. You certainly weren't doing that last year. So let's all just tell the truth, seek the truth and speak the truth. And let's all look at the situation and go, he's running what the coach is asking him to do. It's very simplified, but it's working and they're winning. Could you do this with Jarrett Stidham? To a degree, but he wouldn't be special in those special moments. Now, what you remember from Seattle is what I remember from Seattle is Russ could take over a game and he would be special and he would extend the plays and you kind of forget the game plan and just kind of take over. He can't do that anymore. But there are moments.
Why can't he?
It's age, honestly. It's age and the fact that he's not the threat. He used to be able to waste time in the pocket or even outside the pocket. And he was still fast enough that he could take off and run and be a threat with his legs. Now, when he runs, he has to do it quick. And that's one thing that's been coached to him. And where we got to credit Russell Wilson is that he's had the biggest piece of humble pie in the National Football League. No one else has had to eat more humble pie than him. And, he's kind of taken a step back from the ego. I think it's really fantastic for this old man. I was going to call him a young man, but it was fantastic for us to see with Russell Wilson and the fact that he could have that humble pie and he could go out there and say, yes, sir, coach. No, sir, coach. Let's do it this way, coach, and not fight it. He's not fighting it the way he did it with Pete Carroll. That's why it ended in Seattle because he was able to take over a game and come on, coach, I can take over a game. He can't do that anymore. But in those moments, it's 3rd and 8. You need to move the chains. Russ, I need you to be special now. He can still do that. It's something the Bills, I don't want to turn this into a Bills show, but if the Bills did that with Josh Allen, they'd win multiple Super Bowls if they did that right now. And I know Josh is young, but you can't play hero ball all the time. There are moments when you need to be the hero. Josh Allen can do it. The team's messed him up. The Broncos can do it with Russell Wilson, and Sean Payton is not messing it up.
All right. Well, you got to trust in Sean Payton. He obviously has a ton of experience in his back pocket, but I want to talk about the two quarterbacks for this weekend's game. CJ Stroud obviously wins AFC Player of the Month for the month of November. Even though they had a loss to Jacksonville last week, CJ Stroud is playing some good football, and he's dangerous. And I just want to look at the numbers real quick, too, because you pull these things up. 3,200 passing yards, Cecil. That is showing you that they trust him to throw the ball, but he's also not afraid to throw it downfield too. So it's crazy when you just look at those numbers, and still the amount of yards compared to the completion percentage, you got to give it to this kid.
Right. And then you look at the completion percentage, Russell's is about 70%. CJ Stroud's is 63%, but Russ is throwing 2-yard passes. I've heard you talk about the air yards per attempt, right? It's all checkdowns. It's all simple stuff. And that's fine. They're winning. I don't care. It's 2 reads and run. I don't care. They're winning. Stroud is nothing but deep shots.
Yeah.
He's averaging 63% completion on the least likely passes to complete, which are 15 yards or more downfield. And he's setting up those deep shots. Noah Brown is back practicing. Again, it's Friday. We're going to wait on the Friday practice report, but he's missed a couple of games. The last 2 games that Noah Brown was out there, 150 yards, 170 yards, and a touchdown in the 150-yard game. But anyway, so you've got Tank Dell, that little tiny, we very rarely see receivers that are that small, that ever do anything in this league. Tiny weapon. Nico Collins, huge target. He's their version of Courtland Sutton. You got Dalton Schultz. You even have Brevin Jordan, backup tight end, maybe working in a little bit more. So all these weapons, you got 2 running backs, but you've got Stroud running the show. And one of the things that I've tossed around the Broncos locker room this week is, how do you rattle someone who cannot be rattled? CJ Stroud is amazing. His story is amazing. First and foremost, growing up, living above a storage unit. His dad went to prison when he was a teenager, I believe. And, you know, just having those type of struggles, he didn't have the football camps. He didn't have the latest cleats. He didn't have the latest helmet. He wasn't going to Manning Pass Academy, all these sorts of things. Like, he had that struggle. So the pressure on the field, that's nothing. He's had life pressure, like real pressure, real poverty that he's battled through and became a bona fide, dare I say, superstar in this league. You put him in the race for MVP. That's easy. And what's happening here is the fact that you can't rattle him, and his pass placement is next level. Like, you don't usually see this from a rookie quarterback. So he's making full field reads. I was making sure to tell everybody that in the press room this week, is like, he's making full field reads. He's making, I felt like I was screaming, the British are coming or something. Like, he's making full field reads. It's unbelievable that you see a rookie quarterback this advanced. I've compared him to Justin Herbert in year 2, and he's doing that in a dozen games right now. He's what Herbert was in year 2.
Do we need to give a lot of credit to DeMeco Ryans, or is it seriously just CJ Stroud and what he's been able to do in his career and taking the opportunity and running with it?
You know the dirty secret in the NFL, Rachel. It's fit.
Which one? There's a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot. There is a lot. There's some we're not going to say on air, but the dirty secret we can talk about is fit. The secret in the NFL is fit. Bryce Young could have fit with DeMeco Ryans. CJ Stroud definitely fits. And we see what Bobby Slowick has done there. These are Shanahan concepts. And what's great, when you have a Shanahan offense with a special quarterback, a Shanahan offense can get by with a regular quarterback. Look at what they did with Jimmy Garoppolo in San Francisco. Look at what they're doing with Brock Purdy. I like Brock Purdy, but he's not special. CJ Stroud is special. You add that element into that offense, which actually, and it's going to sound weird for me to say this, so just bear with me, that offense makes the quarterback the least important part of the offense because of the wide zone concepts, because of the motions and the shifts and the movement, and they're just looking for you to make a mistake as a defense. But this young man is distributing the ball, and again, full field reads. There's nothing he can't do, and you can't rattle him. Blitz him all day, doesn't matter. Drop 8, doesn't matter. He can shred you up.
Well, and he's got, a great chemistry with his wide receivers too. Like, you look at his interceptions, 5 on the season. Okay, you're a rookie, but 3 of those came in 1 game, and then the other 2 out of 10 games, like, that's really good chemistry with where you're placing the ball and that development with your wide receivers.
And let's go back to that 3 interception game, because I remember first talking about it after it happened and then charting the plays. He didn't care. A lot of young players, and they won't be allowed the freedom from their head coach, right? It gets in their head. So it's great for DeMeco Ryans, that chemistry, to just be like, kid, you'll be all right. Calm down a little bit. To go out there, still battle, still fight, work through those interceptions, still win all these games. Like, you see it with CJ Stroud, and he's not getting in his own head, even when he plays poorly. He very rarely does. But if he does and he makes mistakes, he learns from them. He doesn't repeat them, and he doesn't let him get him down. And that's incredibly important. That's a life lesson for everybody out there.
No, for sure. All right, so you're looking at the secondary. You're like Pat Surtain, fantastic. Justin Simmons, great leader down there, able to, move the defense around in the areas that they need to, and obviously the turnovers, we can get into that. What else do they have to do to beat CJ Stroud?
Yeah, they have to make sure, because again, you're not going to pressure him. You're not going to pressure him upstairs. So play sound on the back end. Make sure to take some of his favorite targets away. And first and foremost, stop the run. They've got two running backs. Devin Singletary last week wasn't much, but 2 weeks before that, it was a couple 150-yard games from Devin Singletary because Dameon Pierce was hurt. Well, now Pierce is back. He was back last week. They still had his time split. I believe it was 70% in favor of Devin Singletary, top of my head. But either way, they can use both Pierce and Singletary to attack you on the ground, and that'll really help the rookie. And not that they have to settle him down or calm him down, because again, he's super calm, he's super poised. But the Broncos, first and foremost, must make sure that Devin Singletary and Dameon Pierce do not beat them. If they let this team run wild, again, if Cleveland had just stayed with the run, even with PJ Walker in, they could have hung with the Denver Broncos. I'm not going to say beat them because, Broncos got away from them. If the Minnesota Vikings had stayed with the ground game, I'll go back to the Buffalo Bills game. You watch all these games, you're like, okay, guy fumbles, right? And then the team's like, we can't run anymore. No, you can. Look at what the Commanders did. The Commanders were down, by like 21 to Denver, which is unheard of that you would still run when you're down by 3 touchdowns. They kept running and they won. So running is the key against Denver. If you can run, which the Texans can, you can beat the Broncos.
All right, Cecil, this is one of my favorite segments of the week. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
All right, everybody. It is time for Cecil's Fantasy 5 tips presented by Hooters. Let's do this, Cecil. What do we got? What's rolling? Who are your sleepers for the week?
Well, I'll talk about sleepers too. I definitely want to talk about sabotage drops. So let's put a pin in that because we got to come back after we're done with sleepers. And I don't necessarily think he should be a sleeper for Broncos fans, but Royce Freeman. Yeah, Royce Freeman. Philip Lindsay's on the air in Denver, and his rookie backfield mate, Royce Freeman, the 3rd-round pick for the Broncos the same year Philip Lindsay came in undrafted, is fantasy relevant this week. Now, Kyren Williams, everyone's going to be like, wait a second, see, he's Kyren Williams. Yeah, I know. Kyren Williams, he's a running back 1. He's going to do everything. But against the Browns, we saw what the Broncos did against the Browns, the Rams, with Joe Flacco starting for the Browns, by the way.
Isn't that crazy?
It is absolutely crazy. Royce Freeman can get it done. Dearness Johnson, speaking of Browns and Broncos, the guy that tore up the Broncos a couple of years ago when we were with the Browns in tune for 130 yards. It's Dearness Johnson with Jacksonville. Travis Etienne is a little bit banged up. They're playing a hapless Bengals team that's just kind of looking to next year. So Dearness Johnson is a sleeper. Royce Freeman is a sleeper. Watch the Miami situation because we don't know yet if Devon A-Chain is necessarily going to play. Jeff Wilson is there going against the Commanders. He can do quite a bit in that backfield as well. So you definitely have some sleeper running backs. There's help for you this week. 6 teams on bye, which is odd. The schedule makers are so dumb. But you do have running back help this week, which is great.
Are you looking at anybody on either the Broncos or the Texans that you're like, this could be a good matchup?
Yeah, Tank Dell has a little bit of a calf thing. They say he's okay, and Noah Brown is back. So this could kind of make my Tank Dell take be a little bit off. But Tank Dell's a top 10 receiver. He's a top 10 fantasy receiver, and that's with Nico Collins, who's a top 10 fantasy receiver. Noah Brown, because Brown's the deep target. Brown, what's Brown averaging on the season? Like 20 yards a catch, whatever it is. He is the deep target. So it might take a little bit away from Dell. Plus, like I said, the emergence of Brevin Jordan there with Dalton Schultz. So you got a ton of weapons, but Dell, all he needs is a short pass, turn in a long gain, a little jitterbug receiver. So certainly the Texans side is where you look at that. It's Sutton on the Broncos side. It is a little bit Javonte. Samaje would probably be in that range of Royce Freeman, right? Okay, so he's in that range. He's in the range of Dearness Johnson, where especially in PPR leagues, although he only had 1 catch last week, you're going to say P. Ryan is enough to be at least a what the heck flex or some sort of sleeper for you this week. But Broncos Texans are one of the best early game, I think. There's maybe a couple others on Sunday, but like the best early game, Broncos Texans. Set your fantasy lineup and then grab your popcorn.
I was going to say that's why they flexed that game. They wanted more eyes to be on this game. I think like 80% of the population is going to be able to watch it, so it should be really good.
Right.
What team are you absolutely staying away from if you have a fantasy person going on?
Yeah, you have to look at the trends, basically. Like, what direction is the trending? I just talked about Cincinnati. I mean, it's Jake Browning, everybody. And maybe there's some sort of like, hey, look at what happened with Tommy DeVito and the Giants. Like, okay, I guess, but am I really going to be looking at Tyler Boyd, who's been banged up, or T. Higgins, who's been banged up? Jamar Chase is Jamar Chase. He is incredible, and he's probably still a wide receiver too. But it doesn't make you feel good when you start these guys. Now, I'm not dropping any sort of Bengals. And by the way, they're going to look at more Chase Brown, their rookie, instead of Joe Mixon. I think Mixon might still get a little bit, but they're in evaluation mode for next year. They want to see if Chase Brown can essentially take over for Joe Mixon, whether they move on or whatever. So just put a pin in that as one of maybe your end of the year sleepers. Maybe he could get more work. But I also want to talk about sabotage drops. This is a term that was coined by Paul Charchian. Now, I'm an OG in the fantasy space. I've been playing fantasy since 1993, and Paul Charchian's been playing since before me. So if there's an OG to the OG, it is Charch, who's up there in Minnesota, does Minnesota radio. It's fantastic. He came up with the term sabotage drop. So there are players that have name value that you can just dump, and then other players in your league are going to be like, I can't believe you got rid of that guy. I'm going to pick him up, and it's actually sabotage. Cue the Beastie Boys, right? It's sabotage. To me, that's a guy like Marquise Brown. And you're seeing, I know Trey McBride's a little bit banged up, watching injury report today, but you're seeing like, okay, it's not really about Marquise Brown with Kyler Murray back, but Marquise Brown is a name. Everyone gets excited. You can flat out drop him because you probably can't trade him. And someone on your waiver wire is going to be like, holy cow, I'm going to pick him up. And then sabotage, they're going to set him in their lineup. They're not going to do anything. And you may be playing against them because remember, fantasy playoffs in some leagues start next week. It's usually 2 weeks now because it's a stupid 18-week schedule. But anyway, like, so week 14, week 15 is fantasy playoffs. You got to win this week to get in. You got to win next week to get rolling. And then you got to win it all. Sabotage drops are the key. So look at your name, guys. Marquise Browns, those type of players, be like, you know, this guy will get a lot of attention on the waiver wire. He's not going to do anything for my team. Dump him out there. See if you can tempt someone in your league to pick him up.
That's so smart. I've never thought about doing that, but you're right. Throw out a big name and people are like, oh, I want him. Boom. Sabotage.
Yep. Gotcha.
I like this. I'm definitely going to be taking this forward for sure. All right. So the last one, because I always like to pay attention to the AFC West just because of the Broncos. Anybody you're loving that maybe some people may not recognize to be a good fantasy starter this week?
Yeah, and I don't really love him, although what's weird is I'm an LSU honk and I didn't have a first-round grade on Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Most of the time when I talk about the Chiefs backfield, I talk about Isaiah Pacheco because I love him. Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Now, Pat Mahomes went to Brett Veach and was like, we got to draft this guy. And they did in the first round. They should have drafted Jonathan Taylor. Imagine that team with Jonathan Taylor. They would never lose the Super Bowl. But fortunately, they have Clyde Edwards-Helaire. But now Jerick McKinnon's a little bit banged up, so Clyde Edwards-Helaire becomes more of a sleeper type of player. Watch to see if rookie receiver Rashee Rice with the Chiefs is starting to get it. We've seen it flash before. The Broncos liked him, brought him in for a top 30 visit, didn't draft him. Either way, we're seeing that kind of click. The Chiefs, to win it all, need someone other than Travis Kelce in the passing game. That might be Rashee Rice. So keep an eye on that. And then speaking of sabotage drop, you might drop, maybe nobody picks him up, but you might think of dropping Quentin Johnston, the rookie for the Chargers. He doesn't know what he's doing. I saw it on film earlier in the year. I was like, why aren't they playing him? Oh my God, he doesn't even know how to line up. He doesn't know the route combinations. He doesn't know the plays. And he got benched last week, so much so that Brandon Staley had to say, oh, no, he's hurt. And he's on the injury report. He's a little bit banged up. And I think he did go to the tent last week's game. But still, he's not hurt, everybody. He just can't play right now. Maybe he turns around. Dynasty, you can scoop him up low. But Quentin Johnston is a player that I liked coming out from TCU, first-round pick. Now you're kind of avoiding him at all costs.
All right. Interesting for sure. Well, Cecil's Fantasy 5 presented by Hooters. We appreciate that every single week. Definitely helps with the fantasy. Cecil, okay. Here's my other question when it comes to the Broncos. And we're going to look back again just for this week. How much do you limit Russ? And I feel guilty because I know people, they want to see Russ cook. But, like, are we going like 60-40 when you're wanting to run? Or are we going like 70-30?
What's interesting is the run-pass splits for the Broncos, and they're not the team that runs the most in the league. That's Cleveland, which, again, is kind of weird. Cleveland went away from that. Anyway, They're about
it's the mental game again, you know?
Right. It's about 55-45 right now, which is run heavy in this league. Now it's 55 pass and it's 45 run, but you said it earlier. Check down. What are those little dump offs? Those are long handoffs, basically. So yeah, it's a screen pass. And my God, I don't know if I have to ask Joe Lombardi about this, because last week I asked him about, hey, it's a tell when Jalil's on the field. And he answered the question. I don't know if he wanted to, but he did. And I appreciate that. But like these flats and screens, like I can tell by the formation what's coming, and not because I watch practice. It's because I chart plays. And so if some slappy on YouTube is going to be able to know that, then of course defensive coordinators are. So these flats and screens, you can let Russ go a little bit downfield. I thought it was interesting. I think our fellas on the drive were asking, should Russ, if they make the playoff, should Russ say, let's ride? And I was like, no, never utter that phrase again. Not at all.
And I don't think he would. I don't think he would. I think he understands still, like, the talk in the room. That's right. It's like, oh, well, Russell Wilson's still just a game manager. Like, there's enough negativity around Russell Wilson that I think he and his team understand that. So yeah, I don't think it would come back, but if it did, oh man, Broncos country, I don't know if they'd be fired up in a good way or a bad way.
I'm not sure, but either way, I think we all need to be fair with Russ. I told Seattle fans on Wednesday's show, I was like, Seattle fans, shut up. Please shut up. I felt like Will Ferrell, right? Shut up. Because the Russ hate it's just dumb, right? Like, oh, he's not the same since he married Sarah. That's not affecting his play at all whatsoever. He's not what he used to be. Gosh, he's old. Like that's happens. Okay. I can still touch the rim. I don't think I can dunk anymore. Although I still, since I lost the 60 pounds, let me finish. I wanted to like prove everybody, I don't know, not wrong, because I dunked before. I can't believe people didn't believe me. But anyway, so like, yeah, you get older. You can't do exactly what you used to do, but you can still win games. Russ can still be special for this team in moments.
Can Russell Wilson win a Super Bowl?
Yes. Yeah. The Broncos are the type of team that can play with any team. They haven't played their best football. In fact, their best game, maybe it's Buffalo. I'm not exactly sure. And I don't necessarily think I've even really thought this through, but their best performance, they've probably been about 75% of their capacity, of their full potential. So yes, Russell Wilson playing like this can win a Super Bowl. It's difficult. Ask the 49ers with Jimmy Garoppolo, who didn't see a wide open Emmanuel Sanders that could have beat the Chiefs. And Russ doesn't see the whole field. Okay. Sorry. He's short. We all knew this. Okay. He doesn't see the full field. He doesn't throw to the middle. These are things he does not do. He will not do, unlikely to do, I should say. But you can win a Super Bowl. It's very difficult. You got to still play great defense. You got to run the ball. So Javonte's got to stay healthy. Samaje's got to do more, and then keep leaning on that Broncos defense.
I don't know, maybe you saw the play that's been going viral on Twitter. It's like, why didn't Russ like pass it to a wide open Courtland Sutton? And I think he like checks it down to Javonte, and Javonte gets like 2 yards, maybe 3 yards. And in my head, I'm like, it's probably because he didn't see him.
Yeah.
It's just the truth.
I've gotten that question about Jerry Jeudy. Like, why was he throw to Jerry Jeudy more? It doesn't see him. You have to design things, which is fine. You had to do the same thing for Drew Brees. It worked for Drew Brees, but when Drew Brees was old, Drew Brees last season was terrible. Like Charles Barkley, terrible. So Russ isn't there yet. Okay. He might have a couple more years, but you can win like this. And I don't want to worry about next year. All right. Everyone getting ahead of themselves. What does this mean? They're going to keep Russ, and then they're going to keep Russ, and then they're going to pay a bunch of money. I don't care. What I care about right now is Houston. Take care of business. 12-5 is still on the table. And until it's not, I'm going to keep saying 12-5, because be damn this mindset. You can lose. It's okay if you lose the Texans game. No, it's not. It's okay if you drop it to the Lions. No, it's not.
Nope.
You are on a razor thin line of making the postseason or not making the postseason. You rarely have these opportunities. You have to go for it. That means win, and keep winning.
It's like a 12%. If they lose this week, their playoff probability goes down to like 12%. That is practically nothing. Now, here's the thing. It's been way worse. They had like a 2.3% chance a few weeks ago, so we get it.
Right.
But you have to keep winning, and that is the key. Cecil, what's your trust in Sean Payton right now? Because mine is like full on high. Like, it's like 100%. I'm like, you know what, Sean? I fully believe in you because of what you've been able to do for the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, it has to be. And I don't mean that to be a cop-out answer, but it has to be. It has to be at 100%. It is with Greg Penner. Greg Penner trusts Sean Payton. Sean Payton could tell him the sky's pink, and Greg would be like, okay, Sean, if you say
Sounds
so.
good, Sean.
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks, Sean.
Which is fine. It's better than Carolina. Why do you think there's a nightmare in Carolina? It's because their owner is meddlesome. Even Jerry Jones thinks Dave Tepper should take a chill pill.
Should they have taken CJ Stroud? I mean, it's easy to say that now, but like looking back in the position
No, because Dave Tepper would have ruined him. Dave Tepper, all the stuff you're seeing from Stroud, you could have seen from Bryce Young. And they were my number 1 and 2 quarterback. It was razor thin. And if you had Stroud over Young, I wasn't going to fight you on that. Like, it was a razor thin margin. I like the intelligence of a Bryce Young. I like the fact of the pass placement with CJ Stroud, which is what we're seeing now. And yeah, it's all about fit. If you go to a wrong team and ownership matters, you're going to have a bad career. Sorry, Bryce Young. You went to a bad team.
Okay, so now it's the time. The show's almost over, and we have to give our game predictions. Can you do it?
Yeah, I can do it. Let's say the Denver Broncos 27, the Houston Texans 24. This is a Will Lutz game-winning field goal.
Oh my gosh, that would give me so much anxiety on a Sunday morning. That would be crazy. Okay, I'm going 24-17, the Denver Broncos. I hope we're both right, Cecil, because I'm loving these conversations as we get hyped for the playoffs, because every week feels like a playoff game, and that's a fun place to be, too. Cecil Lammey, as always, a pleasure. Thank you so much, my friend.
Appreciate you.
All right, that's going to do it. We will be back, hopefully talking about a Denver Broncos win on Monday morning, 10:30 a.m. Come hang out with us. We will see you guys then. Bye, everybody.